This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour brought to you by Brewers Outlet. Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Imports, domestics, microbrews. The best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, lots and lots of snacks. Just because Todd rejects them doesn't mean you have to. That's right. And 6 great flavors of slushies. Okay. 6 great flavors of slushies. And the also ready-to-drink cocktails, High Noon, Jack Daniels, Crown Royal, and the Pickle Bar led by the Barrels and the Dills, indeed second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket.
I'm going somewhere to watch the draft tonight. I'm going to feel guilty when I eat a wing at 9:30.
Why? You only live once.
I know, but, you know, it's a snack.
Yeah. It's sort of a snack. How about that? It's sort of a snack. Come on. That's all it is. Sort of.
Sometimes I eat wings and my snack turns into another meal.
Okay, and then it becomes more than a snack. So the draft is tonight. Okay. And it is amazing, and I give ESPN all the credit in the world with this. I believe the head of programming at the time was Chet Simmons. And Chet Simmons, they came up with an idea. And as you sit there and look at it, he had an idea. Let's do the draft. And I guess when they went to the NFL, Pete Rozelle was like, you want to do what? What do you want to do? All we do is like walk up with cards and that's all we do. And you know what? And they made a whole production out of it. Paul Zimmerman, Howard Balzer from Paul Zimmerman, Sports Illustrated, Howard Balzer from the Sporting News. I had Howard on my show all the time. He was a great guest. Always was willing to do anything. And then they had reporters all over the place, cameras all over the place, and they turned it into a show. And now you see this, you're like, jeez.
I think Dr. Z was the only one that did a mock draft back then, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Well, Howard Balzer did one too.
Well, yeah, I
Sporting News.
I was going to say I used to get both magazines.
Yeah. And they were both great, and they try to predict picks, and it was always comical when they got it wrong, And like, okay. And so they turn into this whole show, and then they used to just do 2 rounds. And in 1987, I'm doing a talk show. And, we've had Paul Alexander on the show, right? Paul's in Pittsburgh. Well, Paul was working for us on the same station at the time. Now, have you ever seen the comedian Joe Mackey?
No.
Okay, Joe Mackey, he's done a lot of appearances on Gutfeld and others. Well, Joe Mackey is from State College. And his brother Mike, was my intern at the time in 1987. Now, Mike has gone on to be a producer in a TV station in Orlando, and now I think Mike's in Palm Beach. Palm Beach or Fort Myers. I think it's Palm Beach. Well, you want to talk about work. Paul's sister, this is when the draft was in New York, Paul's sister lived in New York. So Paulie goes in to New York, stays at his sister's house. He's at the draft. Great. And this is when, and so the first round comes up, and Penn State has Shane Conlon taken. They have DJ Dozier. Now let's get to Mike. Mike has all their phone numbers because that's the kind of worker Mike Mackey is. I mean, Mike is like, you talk about intern extraordinaire. This guy worked and busted his backside. That's why he's been so successful in TV as a producer. Boom. Shane gets picked. Have him on the show. DJ Dozier was watching the draft in Top Trees in his apartment. Boom. He gets picked 14th by the Vikings. DJ's on the show. Right? So we're going through this thing, and back in 87, ESPN stopped the draft coverage after 2 rounds. Okay? All right. So we're on the air, and Paul's still in New York. And then Paul comes on and goes, Steve, just got the news. The Cleveland Browns are going to be selecting Tim Manoa. Incredible. So naturally, as soon as Mike hears that, Mike, boom, gets on the phone. Tim Manoa. Tim's on the show. I mean, this is like, we probably should have submitted it. You know me, I don't submit things for awards. I could care less. Right? Now, if you get one, it's nice, but right, this is better than what anybody else is doing in the state. Okay, on this particular night, I don't care what anybody's doing. And Manoa's on great. Then Paul says, you won't believe it, right away, the Raiders just selected Steve Smith, the other Penn State fullback. Mike immediately gets on the phone. He calls Steve Smith, gets him on the phone, and then in the conversation, like I have with everybody else, I asked the standard question, like I'd asked the other guys on the show. What was it like when you got the phone call, and what did they tell you? So in this case, I said, what was it like when you got the phone call, and what did Al Davis say to you? And Steve said, to be honest with you, Steve, they haven't called yet. The only reason I know I got picked by the Raiders is because I was listening to the show. I was sitting there like, I have to admit, I felt pretty good about that. Like, oh, this is pretty good. This worked out really well. So that's our draft story from back in the day. The other draft story back in the day was before we did any coverage like this, we used to watch the draft in the Sports Information Office at Penn State, which at this time was in Rec Hall. And the players would sit with us. Mike Munchak, right? This is what, the 82 draft. Mike Munchak, Sean Farrell, right? Well, Munchak gets drafted by the Oilers, by the Houston Oilers. like 7th pick or something like that. Like, okay. So Farrell's still sitting there, the other guard. And Radisick and those guys. I'm talking about Keith Radisick. And all of a sudden, the Cardinals are up. And there's a phone call, and Sean leaves and goes into the back office. He's on the phone. So we're watching the coverage on TV. And the Cardinals are sitting there, and it's at this point it was 15 minutes. And, 5 minutes in, nothing. 10 minutes in, nothing. Now it's counting down to 15 minutes. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's no pick. The Cardinals have to pass, which means they move back one spot. We're like, I never had seen that before. So now I think Kansas City was up. Sean comes out of the office, and one of the other guys, I didn't say much of anything. One of the other guys said, hey, what happened? He says, I told him I wasn't going to sign with him. He said, I'm not going to go to St. Louis. I don't want to sign there. He says, no matter what you do, I'm not going to sign with you. That was the phone call. So then St. Louis took an offensive tackle, ended up being a pretty good player. And then the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took Farrell. I think it went Kansas City moved up, took a player, then St. Louis then picked, took the tackle, and then Tampa Bay right after St. Louis took him. Those are my two stories.
One, between all those dudes, it doesn't seem like there was a lot of room in the office for you. And, man, I don't know what's more a segment of the time, them taking phone calls on an actual phone or somebody actually drafted two fullbacks.
I know.
They drafted two fullbacks in the same draft.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. That's so.
I forget who it was, but somebody else has added a fullback. I think it's the Seahawks.
Have they really?
Yeah, they're going to start using a fullback. I think it's 4 teams now.
Wow. I assume the Chargers do.
I think it's the Chargers, the 49ers, now the Seahawks, and the Ravens.
Okay, because Juszczyk was brought back. They remember they cut Juszczyk?
Yeah.
Juszczyk, and they brought him back.
Actually, he visited the Seahawks when he was cut for a little bit.
Right. Yeah, that hour he was cut.
Yeah. Well,
he was cut for about an hour. The 49ers like, no. We just want to rework the deal. Yeah. So the question's going to be, Cam Ward won tonight. I think that's pretty obvious. And since it's pretty obvious, now you go to 2. My thought process on 2 is simple. And that is, a team like Cleveland has, and I was on their flagship station show, and they were really intrigued by having Myles Garrett on one side and Abdul Carter on the other. But when you're a team like Cleveland, which consistently seems to be picking in that spot, you have multiple needs. And I'll be honest with you, picking a Travis Hunter takes care of 2 needs in 1 pick. So I think that is something that could weigh in Hunter's favor. And then Abdul Carter, if the Giants don't trade down, then Abdul Carter to the Giants. Well, the Giants need a quarterback, the whole thing. Abdul Carter's better than any quarterback they're going to get as an impact player.
And I feel like most guys have settled in on that, and that's probably the top 3.
Yeah. Now, Warren can go anywhere from the Jets at 7 to the Colts at 14. I've got him going strong possibility of 10 to the Bears, especially if Ashton Genty's off the board. If Genty's still on the board, the Bears may go with Genty. But if Genty's off the board, which I can't picture him, I think Genti could go to the Jaguars or he could go to the Raiders. So I think he'd be off the board. Okay? And because of that, I think Warren may be the one that ends up falling to the Bears. I think Winston goes in round 2. I think Reed could go in round 3. And then Kobe, maybe round 5. King. And we'll see how it plays out after that.
He kind of has for lack of, kind of a Zach Thomas vibe where it's a position where the NFL has undervalued guys for years and years and years, and you turn around and, we're talking about Kobe having a 10 or 12 year NFL career.
Kobe's interesting because you would think that he would be tagged as a guy that's a first and second down guy, as a middle linebacker, but teams also throw on first and second down. And that's the area of greatest improvement. And everything I'm going to talk about here, I have liberally stolen from Jack Ham. Because apparently he seems to know how to play the position. And he has talked to me repeatedly about how Kobe King has really improved how to play the pass game, understands the proper depth of a drop, how he gets himself into pass lanes, and he can cover people. And that's something we would not have said 2 years ago. I think in his third year, he really started to show that he had a better feel for that. And last year, I thought he was excellent as an all-around player. It doesn't mean Kobe is an every down NFL linebacker, but if you're thinking about playing a guy on first and second down, they throw on first and second down too. It's not always sub-packages. I think they're going to get I think the team that gets him is getting a really good, like the definition of a football player. That's why when we're talking about the quarterback thing earlier, as I said yesterday, in baseball, there's a difference between a pitcher and a thrower. It's the same thing in the NFL. There's a difference between a quarterback and a thrower. Jalen Milroe's a thrower. Okay? It doesn't mean he can't develop into a quarterback. And to be honest with you, he's the best athlete among the quarterbacks there. Yeah, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say he's the best athlete among the quarterbacks. If he were starting for a team, played 17 games, he probably would gain over 800 yards rushing. He's durable, right? He certainly puts something on the ball. And, I do look back on that great throw he made to Isaiah Bond, to beat Auburn in overtime. That incredible play. And that was a heck of a play. Credit where credit's due. And but I remember watching Milroe play Tennessee, and I watched him in the Citrus Bowl game against Michigan, and I kept waiting for him to, like in certain situations, just take the ball, tuck it, and run. And I think he was trying to prove he could throw it, or maybe they were trying to prove he could throw it. You know what I mean? I don't know, because, they're the ones calling the plays. And it just wasn't working. I don't know. So, he's a great athlete. Here's a couple things that could happen. You could get 3 quarterbacks in round 1 tonight. Ward, Dart, Shedeur Sanders. Or you could get 1, Ward. Or you could get 2, Ward and Dart, which means you get to round 2, and Cleveland and the Giants open up round 2 tomorrow, back-to-back. They open it up. Cleveland has the first pick tomorrow night. The Giants have the second pick tomorrow night.
I was going to say, I do wonder if the quarterbacks slip past 21 at the Steelers, if somebody doesn't end up moving up, and we do end up with a second or third quarterback at the bottom of the first round.
Right. Say you got 3 guys picked. Tomorrow night, you could see Milroe and Shuck go in the first 2 picks tomorrow night.
Oh, I don't think there. I think if that happens, I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I mean, right out of the gate, boom. Which would put a lot more juice in the night, too. But I think that's a distinct possibility. Because you're talking about 2 franchises that really do need quarterbacks.
I agree with that, but I just go back, was it 2 years ago? Maybe it was 3 years ago when it was kind of the same talk and there might only be 1 quarterback, and then they still ended up taking 4 anyway. That's the only thing that gives me pause on that, is they just seem to be overvalue these guys and then all of a sudden get worried when 1 or 2 get picked.
Now, let's not pretend Milroe doesn't complete passes. I mean, when he was a junior, 65.8%. As a senior, 64.3%. Okay? 10 yards of completion in 2023, 8.9 yards per completion in 24. He threw 23 touchdown passes, only 6 interceptions as a junior. Here's the issue. He threw 16 touchdown passes and 11 picks this year. Rushing, he rushed for 531, 3.3 yards a carry. As a junior, as a senior, 726 with 4.3 yards a carry. But he also rushed for 20 touchdowns this past season. He actually had more rushing touchdowns this season than passing touchdowns.
I feel like he's, right now he's Randy Johnson with the Expos, and you want somebody to turn him into Randy Johnson with the Mariners.
Right, exactly. Again, pitcher versus thrower. Pitcher versus thrower. This is thrower versus quarterback. Now, that doesn't mean, and by the way, he had another year of eligibility. And he actually is going to be in Green Bay tonight. So he's actually, I think there's 17 players that are going to be in the room. He's one of them. I found that to be surprising. I mean, I don't know. I've referenced the Michigan game, 16-32, 192. 7 carries, 16 yards. And Michigan played great defense against them. And that 7 carries, 16 yards, one was a 41-yard run. And then that game I saw against Tennessee, 25 of 45, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, rushed 14 times, 11 yards. Now, of course, remember that those numbers, you're talking about sacks. He rushed for 117 against Georgia. He rushed for 185 against LSU. He rushed for 104 against Auburn. He also threw for 374 against Georgia. He had a little bit better night against them than Quinn Ewers did.
What's the skinny receiver's name? Is that Ryan Williams?
Yeah, Williams he caught that pass late.
I was going to say that.
Was that a 75-yard play? Yeah. Amazing. But that's the issue. I mean, there's no doubt throwing the ball point A to point B, nobody's going to get it there faster. Question whether it gets there accurately.
Game time or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The Beverage Supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
If you're suffering from spring fever, Sunbury Motors Kia has the cure.
Wanna see you in Kia. Sunbury Motors Kia.
The spring fever reliever is a new Kia from Sunbury Motors Kia. They make it easy to choose because there's 120 brand new Kias available. And $750 owner loyalty is back on the hottest selling Kia models, including the Made in the USA 2025 Kia Sportages and Serenos. Drive home in a 2025 Kia Sportage EX all-wheel drive with leather for under $30,000. Or how about the third row 2025 Kia Sereno S all-wheel drive? Save thousands now as low as $35,034. And of course, every new Kia comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. Stop in today and check out the full Kia lineup. And together, we can be alive in 2025 at Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip in Hummel's Wharf. Warranty is a limited powertrain warranty. For details, see retailer or go to kia.com.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
All right. We'll pick one this time that doesn't have snacks. Maybe in the break room they do. Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, light, business, boat, motorcycle, Medicare products. Yes, indeed. They have it all. And they do a great job making sure you're fully insured and do a great job of finding ways to save you money. Customer service means everything to them at Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. All right. See, Scott Hansen is still not signed yet by NFL Red Zone. They say negotiations are ongoing. He says he wants to come back, and the NFL says they want him back. But they have to come to an agreement. It's not there yet. No offense, but it just seems to me that's an easy one. I know you got to come up with money, but Hansen's, to his credit, is brilliant.
I don't know, the way they've been treating their own media people, I wonder if that's part of it too. If they just don't want to pay the money he probably deserves to be able to whip around. I mean, did you see the stuff during the Super Bowl about Peter Schrager?
I did.
They're inside, like he had to pay his own way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
which is why he's at ESPN now.
But see, this is what baffles me about that. A couple things that baffle me, media-wise. So let's do the basics. The New York Islanders yesterday fired their play-by-play guy and their analyst. Why? That are incredibly popular with fans. They're thinking about not doing radio broadcasts anymore. Really? Wow. Okay. Not because of the quality of the work. They're thinking about not doing it anymore. Now, it should be pointed out, I think their flagship is the Hofstra University campus station. Then TNT right now, which is doing the Stanley Cup playoffs, games in Canada, they're calling from remote locations. Did you know that?
I did see that last night. Something about it being hard or expensive to put everybody up in the smaller towns.
Then why bid? I don't get it. I really don't get it. I mean, you put the bid in. The idea is to make money from it. I got it. But I don't get that. The Islanders absolutely don't get that. It's one of the great marketing tools you have is your radio network. And then the Hansen thing. Like, Talk about Peter Schrager. You're the National freaking Football League. You print money. And you're nickel and diming Peter Schrager? And I'm not saying the nickel and diming Scott Hansen, but he's not signed yet.
I think they're trying to get rid of the network, too. I think they're trying to sell the network to ESPN.
Okay, now, that's an interesting point you're making. Here, it's more than that. John Orand put out a story last week, and I read it, that all of the leagues are trying to figure out ways to shelve their league networks. NFL Network, MLB Network, NBA Network, NHL. They all have their own networks. Right now, there are some games, playoff games, on the NBA Network. Some. They don't want that anymore. I think the NHL Network doesn't have that. They don't. NFL Network, which used to carry more games, rarely does anything like that. In fact, Thursday Night Football used to be on NFL Network at one point. Remember that? And MLB Network carries regional games and some playoff games, but they always carry the feed of whomever the home team is. Like the Red Sox are playing the Mariners right now. They've got Nesson on. But evidently, according to, I'm sorry, Todd, according to John Orand, the leagues are looking to shelve the networks that they have.
One, I was going to say the MLB Network doesn't even do that, like that Saturday night game with Bob Costas anymore, do they?
No.
Yeah. And in this day and age, I get why they did it 15 years ago, but, with their websites and streaming, do they really need their networks? Any of that stuff that they want to keep, they could probably stream on their websites.
Yeah, I mean, it is a cost savings. I just think it's, but let's take the league networks for a second. Let's talk about this. You're the league network. Why is it once a month Adam Silver isn't on for a 1 hour show on NBA Network to talk about the state of the league? Why isn't Gary Bettman on the NHL show once a month? Roger Goodell on the NFL Network once a month. Rob Manfred, if Rob Manfred were on once a month, I don't know if he'd help Major League Baseball or not. But why aren't they on once a month on their network? Talking about the state of their league.
More transparency than they want?
Probably, but at the same time, it's your network. And it's one thing to sit there and have Good Morning Football on. A show. Have you ever seen that show? I've never have, but I know it exists.
Back when I was up that early, yes.
Just sounds so bitter when you say that.
I'm not an early morning person.
Yeah. Just kidding.
I was just going to say, in my defense, I've worked till 1 in the morning for 30 years, so.
How do you do that, Todd? I mean, are you more of an afternoon, evening guy?
I've always been. It's my dad worked night shift my entire life. He always stayed up to 2 or 3 in the morning.
Well, I've never had an issue with that because how many night games do I do a year between football, basketball, and baseball? I do a lot of night games during all seasons, so that's not the issue. I'll tell you what I hated, and I give all the people that work at Sunbury Broadcasting that do the morning shows, I give them all the credit in the world for doing it, because I did mornings for 21 years. Really liked the people I worked with. Hated getting up that early every day. Every day I had to drag myself out. I'm like, all right, let's go. Okay, weather's bad, gotta go. I mean, I told you the story about walking into work one day, right?
Is it the wind?
Snowstorm.
Snowstorm.
Big time snowstorm. And I went to back out of my driveway, and I decided to get up earlier than usual and leave at 4:30. Normally I would leave around 5:30 so I could get there. I was only 5 minutes away from the station. So it's 4:30, and I thought with the snow I'd leave a little earlier just in case. Went to back out of the driveway, and we already had like 18, 19 inches of snow already, and they hadn't plowed the road in my neighborhood. And I backed out, and I got into the road, the back two wheels, and I couldn't move. So I was able to get the car back in the driveway because it was a front-wheel drive car. So I got back into the driveway, and I thought, oh, geez, now what do I do? So I walked. It's 3 miles. And I remember cutting through the backyard and then through what is now Spring Creek Elementary School, which was on the other side of the backyard of the house I used to have. And just going through through 18, 19 inches of snow, trudging your way through. I got down to the roadway, which is Houserville Road. I was exhausted, right? Because it just was tough getting through all that snow. And then I was able to walk down Houserville Road, get to College Avenue, and then swing my way up the hill, avoiding plows, by the way, and got in. So when I got into the radio station, so I could tell everybody else they didn't have to leave, that's always a thrill. I always loved, I get a phone call. Can I make it into work? I did. Then I finally thought, no, if they have to ask, tell them no. But I finally got in there, and I got there walking. I got there 5:45, and the first thing I had to do was at 6 o'clock. Well, of course, the phone's ringing off the hook with every closing possible. There were no delays. I mean, everything was a closing. So I'm just boom, 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 boom. Then I go on at 6 o'clock, and here are the closings and everything like that. And the other guy I worked with didn't make it in. So it's just me. He finally got in like 6:45, almost 7 o'clock. And so I read all these things. And then I throw something in, me playing music. I mean, yeah, great. Picked one through whatever. And for all, I don't know what I threw in. Amy Grant or something like that. And the phone rings. I'm thinking, okay, here come more cancellations. And it's the boss. And he says to me, "Are you at the station?" Now, okay, with all due respect to him, what number did he call?
I was going to say, didn't you answer the phone at the station?
And I sat there and says, well, yeah. I said, I answered the phone here at the station, so that's where I am. And he says, how did you get in? I said, well, I walked. And he starts laughing. He says, no, seriously, how did you get in? I said, I walked. You what? I walked. He says, oh, my God, I can't believe it. I said, well, okay. So then hang up the phone, take all the cancellations, whatever. Finally, Jeff gets in about 6:45, 7 o'clock. So we always have a staff meeting back then on, I don't know, Tuesday nights or something like whatever. The usual waste of time. You sit there and go, just don't talk. And he says, for going above and beyond, walked into the station, saved us all that money because all the commercials played. Okay? All the commercials played. We want to give you a gift. I'm like, oh, great. I got a lapel pin with the station logo on it. Right.
Not even a coffee cup?
No. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Then the meeting was over and went back to where the newsroom is, and I took the lapel pin and I lobbed it into the garbage and then went out the door and went home. It was one of those you have to be kidding moments. Are you kidding me? Really? I realized I was doing what I was supposed to do, but I came in there was nobody there. so it's
They at least could have given you a snow shovel.
Now, I will say this. Later in life, I'd been with the company for 10 years at this point. It was 2000. You know what? So let's be really fair about this. You know what he gave me as a gift? Right? Now, this is 2000. Desktop computer.
Oh.
How about that? Well, I didn't throw that. I didn't lob that into the garbage.
No.
So needless to say, right? That was exact same guy. Okay? So let's give credit where credit's due. That was a major league gift and incredibly generous. And the charts I have today happened to be because I played around on that computer figuring out how I wanted to do it. So again, what do we always talk about? Let's be fair. Let's be fair. I could care less about the lapel pin. This guy came through like 98 on the slow gun when it came to the 10-year gift. Like, wow. Wow. Now, it didn't mean I like getting up in the mornings. I still hated getting up in the morning, no matter what gift they gave me. And I'm still friends with this guy today. He's a good man, good guy. Wife's a great person, too. So, yeah. Put the lapel pin. I'm like, I don't know. Computer? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Way to go. I can't believe this. Look, at 2000, I don't think I could afford one, but it was well done. Well, the draft is tonight. Starts at 8. It's in Green Bay. James went to see the Warrens this afternoon. Had lunch with them. He probably is having lunch with them now. And then he's flying to Green Bay to be with Abdul tonight. And then back tomorrow for the walkthrough, which I think is going to be in Beaver Stadium tomorrow. So, and then Saturday, everybody's been asking. Yes, the game is on the radio Saturday. 1070, in fact, will have the game. Right? 1070 has the scrimmage on Saturday at 2. Jack and I will be there with Brian Tripp and Roger and Bob Taylor. Okay? And we'll present it to you. And you'll be able to hear it in the stadium if you want, if you're going to go. So, yeah. So it may not be on TV, but I've been to almost every practice, and Jack has been to maybe a third of them. So we can give you some perspective on what's been going on. Mucho cool. Yeah. Looking forward to it. So who do we have tomorrow? Is it just the attempt to have the King on, or?
The other King is going to join us at 109, Rob.
Oh, Rob King on the Steelers, sure.
Yeah, we'll talk who they decide to finally take at 21.
Yeah, good. Somebody asked me to do a mock draft today, so I just fooled around, had fun. I had the Steelers taking Shedeur Sanders. He says, why? He says, because it'll make the Steeler fans mad.
The mock drafts I've read the last 2 days, I think most of them have Shedeur going to them 21. We talked to Nick yesterday. He had Harmon from Oregon. I think Dane Brugler's the only other person that had.
You know what? You know what about Harmon? I don't get it. You want to know why? Because I did a bunch of games with him when he played at Michigan State, and I did the Big Ten championship game when he played at Oregon. And that means I watched video of Michigan State and Oregon, right? I am baffled.
I mean, he doesn't drop out of he doesn't go lower than 30 in any of the ones I read.
And I don't understand it. Remember, I felt the same way about Deonte Banks at Maryland?
Yeah.
Harmon was never a guy Jack and I talked about, ever. Same thing with Banks. Never talked about him. And saw him for years. Like, okay,